Hey everybody, this is Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. And it's just Marco here today. I just saw Rambo, Last Blood a few hours earlier. Crazy story. I kind of had to get into an actual war just to see this movie. Because I don't know if you guys have to deal with this, but usually when I go to movies, I buy the tickets online always ahead of time. I don't like buying tickets in the theater. I don't like having to rely on doing that like last minute. I like having it all planned out. And I bought a ticket, and weirdly enough, this is the first time that this has ever happened to me. I went in the theater, I got my tickets, and I went to this old woman, and she looked at the ticket and she asked to see my ID. And I don't carry an ID with me, but let's just say I'm over 18, quite a bit. And and I look over 18. No one thinks that I look under 18, but for some reason she asked for my ID, and so I'm just standing there. I'm already 10 minutes late because I like to arrive late to miss the trailers, and so she points me to this guy, and I go over to him, and he just gives me one look for 1 second and then hands me my ticket. Doesn't even question me. In fact, he says, thanks for coming here, whatever, and but that was just so strange and such a flabbergasting experience to have to deal with that. I already bought the ticket, and no one's going to stop me from seeing the movie. I mean, I could have just walked right past her and she wouldn't have been able to do anything about it. But anyway, I finally got into the movie, and wow, I love this movie so much. This has jumped ahead of every single other movie. It is now my favorite movie of the year. And it was such a satisfying experience to see this really adult movie. This was made by people who didn't think less of their audience. It was made by people who wanted to give us something really special and really just a really fantastic experience with great characters, a great story, a great little simple story, and then a great payoff at the end. I mean, this whole movie, it goes really fast, and it doesn't waste any time with pointless stuff, and all the effects were incredible. This movie has more violence. It has more blood and violence than any other horror movies that have been out this year. That just shows you how dead the horror movie genre is, when the only movie that is violent the whole year is called Rambo. I mean, come on. This movie is amazing. And I'm not underselling this, because it doesn't bring you right into the action. It takes a while, and it takes its time so that the violence is earned. And then there's some violence that they don't even show. I mean, I was recently watching a commentary, Dracula Prince of Darkness, and Christopher Lee was doing the commentary, and he said, oh, in this movie we didn't show anything, and if this movie were made today, like in modern day, then they would show this and they would show that. But in this movie, there were certain moments, and they refrained from showing that. And there were other moments where they said, we are going to show you this stuff. And just wow. So anyways, there's a couple of flaws, though. Rambo himself, he doesn't really have a character arc, but the movie's directed brilliantly, and the way that Rambo is, even though he doesn't have an arc, he still brings a better performance than with Rocky and Creed 2. And so I find that interesting how even though he doesn't have an arc, he was still able to bring his A game. And I really hope they continue making Rambo movies. I loved all the different actors in this movie. I thought that the niece was kind of stupid at first, but then I realized it wasn't really, I mean, she wasn't really that stupid. She was just really vulnerable, and it wasn't, well, I won't spoil it, but the villains in this movie, they're horrible people, and of course with the liars and the monsters on Rotten Tomatoes, they were defending the people in this movie. See the movie, and then after the movie, just think about this. The people on Rotten Tomatoes were actually saying that it was racist and xenophobic for Rambo to be killing these people. Just think about that after you watch this movie and see what kind of people he killed in this movie. These are horrible, horrible people, and they're probably Rambo's worst villains he's ever faced, and that's saying something. Even worse than the ones in Rambo 4, 2, 3, 1. These people were awful. And this movie, it's a man's movie, but I think some women will enjoy it too. I sat right next to this couple, and the woman was enjoying it just as much, and she seemed to really like it, except near the end she kind of thought, like, is it over yet? Like, is it over? Isn't there any more? And so, anyways, this is definitely still my second favorite of the series. I've only seen the first one, the fourth one, and then this one. With the second and third one, I know what happens in them. I've seen clips. I've played arcade games. I know all about them, but I've never really watched the full things. But this definitely overtook Rambo 4. I still love Rambo 1 the most because I love how I love the story, and I love how it's just one man against this army and the police, and how he's just this ghost and this drifter. And I think they could actually go back to that type of thing with the next Rambo, because the way that they're just trying out different things. And this movie was kind of like Home Alone. The last one was kind of like it was kind of like an adventure movie. It was like in the woods. It was very Friday the 13th. And so since they're trying out different things, they could go back to that type of character, and they could really give him some sort of an arc, because I think that was the only thing missing in this movie, was for Rambo to have an arc. Other than that, this movie is perfect. It gave me everything I wanted. It treated me like an adult who came to see an action movie that was R-rated. It didn't sugarcoat things. It gave me these horrible people and told me, and gave me these great effects. I mean, the effects in this movie, I just can't say it enough. The effects in this movie were real effects. Nothing in this movie looked fake. It all looked super realistic. And compared to It Chapter 2, I mean, oh my God, is It Chapter 2 fake or what? So I know I went on a little bit of a weirdness ramble today in this review, but it's really just because I had such a fun time, and I can't get over how much of a fun time it was. And the niece, she was a really good actress. She was a great character. And then the grandma, she was a great character. The journalist, I liked her a lot. I think she would be another great character to possibly have in sequels. And the villains, of course. I mean, there was no bad acting in this movie. And Sly, you could tell everything that he was saying. he did a great job, and he didn't he a lot of people complain about certain actors' voices, like Bane in The Dark Knight Rises, and Arnold in some of his older movies, and Sly in some of his movies, but he did a great job. I could understand everything he was saying. So, this is my favorite movie of the year. Here's my rating. First off, we start off with chips and salsa. This represents the sort of formulaic first and second kind of act. The first hour of this movie gives you this simple story, and it's all you need. A lot of people, they like having chips and salsa. They like having a little snack before dinner. I don't do that anymore because I'm on a diet. But I used to do that. I used to love eating chips and then like some spicy salsa. And that's what this first and second act felt like. And it wasn't a bad chips and salsa. It was really good. And then we get to the main course, which is the final act. And then a little part of the second act too. Because there's this thing that happens near the final act. And let's just say it was very emotional, and I'll talk about it in spoilers. And so that is a perfect filet mignon with French fries and perfect grilled asparagus. That is my rating for Rambo Last Blood. Chips and salsa, and then for the main course, filet mignon, grilled asparagus, and seasoned French fries. The French fries represent the different sort of kills and the satisfying kill moments and the traps. The filet mignon represents Rambo himself and then all of the effects. And the asparagus represents the fantastic directing. Again, this movie was directed so phenomenally. It might have been formulaic in the beginning in terms of writing, but the way that it was directed really pulled me in, and you couldn't have directed it any other way. This is perfectly directed. And so that's my rating. Now on to spoilers. In terms of spoilers, I thought the daughter was kind of stupid at first. Like, you know, in horror movies, you always complain about the stupid teenagers or whatever. But then I realized that it wasn't really her that was stupid. It was the fact that she was basically set up. Her friend sold her out to these slavers. And as soon as I realized that, I was like, oh, God. Because at first she goes in this, like, really dirty apartment, and I was like, oh, why are you going in this place? You know you're gonna meet these guys, and they're gonna see you, and they're gonna be like, oh, and they're gonna kidnap you or something stupid and generic like that. But no. She meets her dad, and he basically tells her he doesn't give a fuck about her, and the least that he could have done is let her stay the night, because it was horrible for him to throw her back out in the streets knowing how dangerous Mexico is, and then, you know, you have this horrible friend who and I love the nightclub sequences where they go in there and the lights are really blinding and the music's blasting. You can't hear what people are saying, and the